Wow.
Look at all these people.
This is great.
Look at all these beautiful people. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Susan's iPad is still waving.
Hold on. Hold on.
And then you have to continue. I don't know why.
Yep. See, that's the problem. We have to we'll have to circle around here.
Oh, that's okay.
I see a couple of my pals, Susan and David.
Good.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Well, Susan Cotton. I think there are about 17 Susans on right now.
It's a good name.
Not seeing any other Kellys yet.
I can't see.
You can't see?
No, but I can't see. You want to move this chair?
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
We're going to meet everybody in just a minute, right, Lindsay?
Yeah.
Wow. This is exciting. This is great.
There's so many, they don't fit on a screen. Is there a way to make where everybody's on? I guess not. Welcome, everyone. We're gonna give everybody a few more minutes to come on in, but I'm Kelly Gilfillan. I'm one of the partners of Camino for Good, so just wanted to say welcome. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. We had 125 people sign up, so it's definitely by far our biggest crowd, and we're so excited to have you all here, and very excited about our speaker and very excited about our challenge launching tomorrow. 45.
So it's actually today for Australians. Just
oh, I know you keep. Thank you, Lindsay. And the challenge has begun in Australia, by golly. Sorry, that was very Tennessee of me. Look at everybody. 45 people. Up to 3 screens now. Very cool. So for those of you who don't know, Camino for Good started in America with an idea from one of my Camino training partners, Susan Depew. So Susan, wave. I'm sure only half the people will see you. That's Susan. It was her idea to create our virtual hiking app after we did a virtual run across Tennessee in the United States, or we started doing one. And she came up with the idea, and we invited some of our fellow pilgrims in to join us on the endeavor. And we all agreed that it needed to be a lot more than just a business, and that it needed to be something that would do good. And that's where our name came from, was Camino for Good. And we're up to 52. I'm just gonna talk for a few more minutes while everybody comes in. And so we decided that our primary goal was to provide an amazing experience in our virtual hiking app, which is Camino for Good, or app.caminoforgood.com, depending on how you come in. And then our secondary goal was a very personal mission, and that was to help the albergues in Spain. And for those of you who are not familiar with that word, the albergues are the hostels that serve the pilgrims who walk the Camino. And there's 250,000 people a year normally who walk the Camino Francés, which is what I walked in 2018, what Susan walked. But some of our partners have walked multiple Caminos, and some even outside Spain. So we have a diverse group of founders, and then we were very lucky to be matched up with two developers, a couple, Veronica and Fabio, out of Massachusetts. And they loved our mission so much that they ended up coming on as partners as well. So we have 7 partners. One is in Australia, and the rest of us are in America, all over America. But Veronica, who's one of our partners, grew up in Spain and has family in Spain. So that's really handy to have a Spanish-speaking partner on the team. So we're up to 56. There's some chats going on. Aw, hi from Dublin.
Yeah, so I don't know to interrupt, but,
Ernesto.
Ernesto's with us.
Our Ernesto, one of our albergues that we donated money to, is with us. That's awesome. I'm trying to
Yeah.
find them. There's so many on the screen. Don't see you, but I know you're there. So everybody, just welcome, and we're so grateful that you're here, and we're so grateful to be providing this app to everyone. But I think we're all 7 of us are just passionate about giving back to the albergues and being a part of what keeps the Camino going. And the Camino doesn't need us, but we still want to help. And the Camino provided for all of us, and we want to provide to as the much deserving albergue owners. And we've been able to do that. So far, we've given away $2,000, but hope to give a lot more after this Walk for Good challenge. So those, as Lindsay pointed out earlier, the people who are in Australia would have, it is Friday, January 15th over there. So officially our Walk for Good challenge has begun. Those in America will sign on tomorrow and begin walking. My screen just went away. So if you haven't signed up, you can go to caminoforgood.com, and there is a link at on the navigation bar that says Walk for Good Challenge 2021. And anybody who's here tonight is automatically registered. We have 5 books to give away from our speaker. And so we're gonna do a random drawing for those tomorrow morning for everybody who attended. And so we know if you win that, you're going to be super excited, especially after you hear Mark speak. And just one little bit that we want to always explain is that Camino for Good is a public benefit corporation. We are not a charity. We are a business that has chosen a corporate formation that allows us to not put our shareholders first, but to put our mission first, and that is to help albergues. And so, you know, we have a great app. We want you to love it as much as we do and enjoy your time on it. But our mission is to help save the albergues and keep them going so that they will be there when all of you decide to walk the Camino, and maybe for a lot of you to walk it again. So I'm going to turn it over to Susan Depew. Like I said earlier, for those of you who didn't hear it, this whole thing was Susan's idea. And so we owe a lot to her for her brain power and her ingenuity and her entrepreneurship. And she knows our special guest and our speaker very personally. And so we want to let her introduce Mark to you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Kelly. This grew beyond anything I could imagine, though, with Kelly and Lindsay and Bill and Shay and Veronica and Fabio took it beyond anything I thought of. So I just want to say that. But in just a minute, I'm going to introduce Mark to you. We're going to mute everybody. And so while he's speaking, if you have a question for him, put it in chat. And at the end, around 10 minutes or so before the hour's up, Kelly's going to begin to read those, and Mark has promised us he's going to take time to answer every question. He told us he'd stay and answer questions as long as we had questions. I know that some of you at the top of the hour are going to want to sign off. Go ahead. We understand. That's great. This is a great group. You've been signing in. I see Canada and all over the US. And so we're so glad that you're here. Mark LeBlanc is a certified speaking professional living in Minneapolis. If you're familiar with the National Speakers Association, you know that this award is earned, not given. It's earned with lots of work and accomplishments. Mark also served as president of that very prestigious organization. You know, I first met Mark in 2005 when a friend told me about an upcoming weekend retreat called Achiever Circle with someone named Mark LeBlanc. Well, I went to that weekend Achiever Circle and it changed my life. It changed my career. I learned so much from Mark and I realized what his insights could help me grow my business. So I hired him to be my business coach. And over the next 3 years, with Mark's help, my business soared. Mark, his teachings have always been such a great gift to me. A few years later, fast forward, I'm reading a book that my friend Betty gave me called Walking Home. It was about a woman who walked the Camino de Santiago, and I'd never heard of it before. And I was reading that book and enjoying it and was real curious. I was checking messages one day and there was Mark. I hadn't heard from Mark in a few years. And Mark had just returned from walking, guess what? The Camino de Santiago while I was reading that book. Well, I took that as my sign that I could and I should walk it too. And so in 2018, I walked the Camino. So thank you, Mark, for always inspiring and encouraging me. And so I am so pleased to have Mark with us, Mark LeBlanc.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Susan. And I really appreciate your kind words. I know that we have people who have walked the Camino or a portion thereof. I know that some of you might be thinking about it. Some of you might have a future Camino on your calendar. But if you have walked the Camino or a portion of it, I can't hear you, just raise your hands. All right. Nice to see that. Many of you already. Well, then I will just simply say, Buen Camino, which is the cry of the Camino, the mantra of the Camino. And by the time you walk 500 miles and 1,000,000 steps and 30 days or so, give or take, across Spain, you've heard the phrase Buen Camino so many times, it just becomes a normal part of your conversation, and it simply means have a good way, or a good walk, or a good path. And so there are many times my pilgrim pals, we are always signing off on our emails and our text messages with Buen Camino. I am 59 and 10 months. When you turn 59, you start counting off the months before you turn 60. I can hardly believe I'm going to turn 60 in the middle of March, because it seems like just yesterday I was 21 years old. And at 21, I was fortunate enough to start a different kind of Camino of sorts. I did not know it at the time. I have been on my own boss, since I was 21. I had a job once for about 6 months, and I found out at a very early age that I was unemployable. I was inspired by the 2 words, "You're fired." And I made a vow at 21 that I would do whatever it would take to make it on my own. And I'm coming up on celebrating my 39th year of being in business for myself. I'm very proud of that. It has not always been easy. I've had some good years, I've had some bad years, I've had some great years, and I've had a few ugly years in my rearview mirror. I would not trade it for anything. I have been on a 39-year Camino of being my own boss. I would suggest to you that you do not need to go to Spain to walk the Camino. You can create your own Camino right where you are. And this opportunity and app and a virtual Camino, I think, is one of the gifts of COVID-19, if you want to look at it that way, because it gives us an opportunity to come together and do some extraordinary things in the quest to not only serve others, but to change our own lives. And every once in a while, I say something good. And I'm not quite sure where it comes from, but I hope that you have something to write with and something to write on, because I feel something good about to come out. And that is no change, no change. I heard someone say once, Mark, I am very committed to change, as long as it doesn't have anything to do with me. And over the last 12 years, it's hard to imagine, or I never could have imagined, that my life could be so good and my business and my career so rewarding. And I think the turning point for me, or the tipping point for me, was walking my first Camino in the fall of 2008. But let me take you back to 2006, when my brother John said to me, Mark, you need to talk to my friend Jim about his little walk in Spain. And I said, what do you mean, little walk in Spain? And a couple of weeks later, I sat at a kitchen table with his good friend Jim, who had walked the Camino. He had just retired from being a teacher, and his retirement gift to himself was to go to Spain and walk the Camino de Santiago. I had never heard of the Camino de Santiago. I am Roman Catholic and actually was in the seminary for 2 years earlier in my life, and seriously contemplated becoming a Catholic priest. But even in my seminary days and my faith journey, I'd never heard of the Camino. But I sat at the kitchen table and I heard him talk and tell the story of how he went to Spain and walked 500 miles, but he did not even train a single day. And after one day, his feet were so badly blistered that he taped them up with duct tape and kept marching on 500 miles. And I don't know about you, but that I could not get my arms around that. I could not wrap my head around why someone would choose to do that. But this was October or so of 2006, and it just gnawed at me. I mean, every day, every week, for the next a month or two. And then finally, after about 6 weeks of hearing Jim's story, I woke up one morning and I thought, that's it. I'm going to Spain. I'm going to go on this little short 500-mile walk. Only at the time, I was the vice president of the National Speakers Association, and it would be 2 years before I could look at my calendar and carve out the 5 weeks necessary to go walk the Camino. But I did. I looked out into the fall of 2008. I colored in Camino for about a 5-week period. But for 2 years, while I was growing my business and completing my term of service as president, vice president, president of the National Speakers Association, for 2 years, it was a romantic stroll through Spain. With about a month to go, the horror of it began to set in. Now, like many, I read the books, I did the search, for 2 years I was planning, what to bring, and I'd completed my professional commitments. I was exhausted, and actually for the first time in my life, I understood what it felt like or meant to be burned out. So I did what any man would do. I shaved my head shiny bald. I had always wanted to do that. And I thought, this is my opportunity to shave my head. And even though I'd been planning the Camino for 2 years, on the morning I was to fly to Paris, France, it was as if my brain went right out my ear. And I thought, there are no stores in Spain. All I'm going to have is my backpack. And I just started grabbing things. I would be embarrassed to tell you just what I added to the things that I needed. I made sure that I had extra reading. I grabbed 5 books. I thought, I'm going to have plenty of time to read along the way. I'll grab these books. I went to Costco and I bought the jumbo size of everything. I bought the jumbo vat of Vaseline for my feet. I bought the jumbo shampoo. I didn't have any hair, but I thought I'm going to need some soap. I mean, anything that I could put in that backpack, I put in my backpack that morning. I got dropped off at the airport with a little extra time to spare, and I had too much with me already. Now, this is a little embarrassing, but I went into one of the luggage stores at the Minneapolis airport, and I bought a medium-sized backpack for the overflow. I thought, I will figure out how to load up my big backpack and my medium-sized backpack when I get to Spain. I'll figure out a way to hook them up together. And I think I spent $100 on the medium-sized backpack. I flew to Paris. I took a train down to a little village in southern France called Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. I got in a little bit late. It did not make sense to go up and over Mount Lapeter on day 1. And so what would you do? You do what I did. I went shopping because I had extra room in that medium-sized backpack. And I thought, I'm going to need an extra, I think I got 3 extra t-shirts, 2 short sleeve, 1 long sleeve. I already had t-shirts in my backpack, but I thought these are pretty nice and the prices are pretty reasonable. And I figured out how to attach my medium-sized backpack to my large backpack. And the next morning, I would set out and start walking. And for those of you that are not familiar with the Camino doesn't break you in gently. The most popular starting point is a little village called Saint Jean, and you're not even leaving the village of Saint Jean before you're starting to ascend Mount Lapeter. It is physically the most grueling day of the entire Camino. And it started to rain. If you can imagine this, a bald, burned out Mark LeBlanc with not only a large backpack, but a medium-sized backpack, starting out on day 1 in the rain to try to go up and over Mount Lapeter. I began to walk, and I walked, and I walked, and I walked, and I walked. And I hadn't even gone 2 miles, and I thought I was going to die. Now, I was in shape. I had done a lot of training and preparation, but there is no amount of training and preparation you can do to prepare yourself for what really happens on the Camino. You will meet muscles you never knew you had. But after about 2 miles of walking in the rain with these 2 backpacks attached to me, I thought, if people have been walking the Camino for over 1,000 years, if I was a farmer along this way, I'd set up a bench alongside the road. I'd serve lemonade or iced tea to the people walking by. And I went about another 100 yards or so around a bend, and there was a bench alongside the road. And I could not believe my good fortune, but I also could not believe that I was stopping for my first rest break after 2 lousy miles. And the bench was actually set back a bit, kind of in the ditch. And I took my medium-sized backpack off. I took my large backpack off. I sat down on this bench. The rain is coming down, and I looked around, and it was almost as if I was sitting in the middle of a dump, because people had already were discarding things around this bench. There were shoes, there were extra shirts, there were all kinds of supplies that I was sitting in. You realize very quickly that if you're going to carry something 500 miles, that every ounce counts. And I sat on that bench in the rain, and I began to think about my life. I began to think about my work. I began to think about just 1 month ago, I was president of the National Speakers Association. I've had some ups and downs along the way. We had just had our annual convention in New York City at the Marriott Marquis Hotel at Times Square. My room at the Marriott Marquis was 2 floors. It's where Tiger Woods stays. It's where Michael Jordan stays. It's where kings and presidents stay when they're at the Marriott Marquis. And just 30 days ago, it was my suite for 8 nights. My tip every morning for housekeeping was $100. And here I'm sitting on a bench in the rain, dying, and beginning to think, what in the world was I thinking? And then all of a sudden, I began to think, how can I get out of this? Maybe I can just walk back the 2 miles, take a bus to Barcelona, and just hang out for 5 weeks. No one would ever know. And I don't know how long I sat on that bench in the rain and thought about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the great in my life and in my work. And I hadn't started crying yet, but I stood up and I strapped on both those backpacks and I started walking again. And that day I went up and over Mount Lapeter, and I stumbled into, hobbled into a little village called Roncesvalles. And that night I stayed in a hostel or refugio or albergue, as Kelly described them. And you must be a registered walker of the Camino to stay in these albergues. And I walked into this converted monastery, and I think the fee for that night was $5. Now, I didn't know what to expect. But nothing could have prepared me for when this woman, I said to this woman, I paid the $5. She stamped my Camino passport, which would later become one of my most prized possessions of my life. And I said, where do I mean, do I get my own room? Do I have to share a room with a couple of people? And she said, turn around, buddy. And I turned around and there were 60 bunk beds in one room. And it was full that night. Do the math. That's 120 people, ages 20 to 70 in one room overnight. That is a symphony of sounds during the night like you cannot even imagine. I like to say it was the best $5 I ever spent in my life. But that night I went to dinner, as those of you know, and hopefully some of you will go walk the Camino, and you'll find out that in the evenings, you will meet people from all over the world. And on that very first night in Roncesvalles, I went to dinner with about 12 people, and we're all scared. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what we had signed up for. We had just gone through one of the most grueling days of our lives, and not sure just what to expect or how this was going to turn out. And I was having a conversation with 3 women from England. Now, I was coming from the States, and most people who come from the States will plan to do the Camino in one fell swoop. And that's how I was doing it. I was planning on about 30 or 32 days. A lot of people from Europe will do it in stages. They'll do a week a year for 5 years, or they'll do 3 stretches over 3 years. And these 3 women from London, this was their 3rd year, 3rd stretch. And I was in conversation with a woman named Judith. Now, I was a champion wrestler in high school, and I was in pretty good shape for this Camino. And Judith did not actually look like a walker. Now, I didn't tell her that. Here I am dying after one day, and this was Judith's 3rd year. And I looked at Judith and I said to Judith, might you have any advice for me? What have you learned along the way? And Judith looked at me and she said, Mark, I've learned one thing. No matter how miserable you are, no matter how badly your feet are bruised and blistered and bleeding, she said, you can always take one more step. I have been in the National Speakers Association since I was 22 years old. That was my dream, was to become a professional speaker, and I was fortunate enough to discover that at the age of 21. I could not imagine that professional speaking could actually be a career path. I have had the good fortune to grow up and to listen to and to learn from and to have lunch with people like Zig Ziglar. I met Art Linkletter, Wayne Dyer. I met Jack LaLanne in 1983. A score of professional speakers, Norman Vincent Peale, my hero of an author, a man named Og Mandino, who wrote a number of books, but is most famous for his little book, The Greatest Salesman in the World. My dad had given me a copy of that when I graduated from high school at 18. I have heard every miserable motivational quote in the history of the universe, but nothing has ever inspired me more than the words of the great Judith, you can always take one more step. And I hung on to that pearl of wisdom for over 500 miles over the next 30 days and over 1 million steps across northern Spain until I arrived in front of the Cathedral of Santiago. And it became one of the greatest moments of my life. In fact, I've often described it as it is the only moment where I feel like I have experienced real joy. Not happiness, not success, not achievement, but pure, unadulterated joy. And it became for me a moment in time that I would mark as a do-over. What people will tell you who have walked the Camino is that reaching Santiago is not the destination. It's not the finish line. It's the starting line to a new chapter, a new way of thinking, a new way of making decisions, of taking risks. And since then, in the last 12-ish years, my life has been better than, and my business more rewarding than I could ever have imagined. And during that 12 years, I met and married a woman by the name of Sweet Anne. And it was always my goal to possibly one day walk the Camino again. And it was 2013 when Sweet Anne and I were married. And we were not even married about a month. And I came home from work one day and she's standing at the door with her hands on her hips and she says, "We need to talk." Now, I don't know about the men who are with us, but when you walk into your home in the evening and your wife is standing there with her hands on her hips and says, "We need to," nothing good happens after "we need to talk." I was only 30 days or so into this new marriage. I was scared to death. And she sat me down on the sofa and looked me in the eye and she said, "You need to go walk the Camino again." And I said, "Well, yes, one day I want to do that." And she said, "No, you need to do it and you need to do it soon." And I said, "Well, okay." I had already sort of put it on my back burner with being married and everything that goes along with that. And she said, "You light up when you talk about the Camino. I've watched it." And then she said something that every speaker never wants to hear. She looked at me and she said, "You cannot keep talking about something you did 6 years ago." And I said, "You're right." I said, "You're right." And I'm not sure I would describe it as needing permission or getting permission, but she opened that door and the floodgates, it wasn't long, a month or two, I put it on the calendar for the following year. I booked my ticket and I was all set for Camino 2 in 2014. Only now I had been married almost a year. And Sweet Anne's self-esteem is often derived from how much I eat. She's an amazing chef. And I had put on well over 30 pounds of marriage weight in that first year. In fact, the 3 or 4 days prior to leaving for Camino 2, She made every favorite breakfast, every favorite lunch, every favorite dinner. I had to get to the airport just to get away from her. I could not eat anymore. This time, I was not in good shape. I was overweight. I had not trained nearly as much as I had trained for Camino 1. I flew to Paris. I took the train down to Saint Jean. And on that first morning, when I was about to take my very first step, it was almost, and I get chills even just thinking about it at the moment. It was like I was about to take my first step. It's about 6 a.m. in the morning, and I cannot believe my good fortune. I cannot believe that I'm back here on the Camino to walk it again. How lucky am I? Within a few hours, I was cursing the Camino. But I was forced to do two things because I was not in shape. I was heavier than I had planned to be, and I had not trained. But because of that, I was forced to walk slower. I was forced to drink more water. I was forced to take more breaks. Some of you might find this hard to believe, but I didn't get a blister in the next 500 miles. And I discovered that Camino 2 was just as grueling, but profound for a different reason. And the reason that came to me, or the lesson learned, Camino 1 was you can always take one more step. But Camino 2 was find your pace. Find your pace. And I came back in September of 2014. And for those of you that are in business for yourself, you know that you have certain goals you want to achieve and targets you want to hit. I have hit my monthly sales target every 30 days since September of 2014. By I found my pace on the Camino, but I came back and I found my pace in my life. I found my pace in my career, and I have been consistently in second gear since September 2014. I've never shifted into neutral, nor have I ever shifted into high gear. Equally grueling, equally profound, only for a different reason. No blisters. I arrive in front of the Cathedral of Santiago on Camino 2. It's like, touchdown, I did it again. And we partied and we celebrated, and I went back to Minneapolis and continued on and kept going, and have done incredibly well. And certainly by now I have a mature business, and incredibly grateful for my clients and my audiences and those who come to what Susan referred to as my weekend business retreat, the Achievers Circle. I'm really having the time of my life in my business since Camino 2. But on Camino 2, I made the decision to walk the Camino every 3 years until I can't. And so I came back in September of 2014 about Labor Day, and I looked out 3 years on the calendar and colored in Camino 3 in 2017. You'd be amazed at how fast 3 years can truly go by. But if you notice a pattern, one of the patterns is what can happen when you have something on the calendar that you're looking forward to. And now I had 3 years to look forward to Camino 3 in 2017. The next 3 years were amazing. Ann and I are doing wonderful. We're having the time of our marriage. 2017, we hit January 1st. I booked my ticket. I'm going to Spain, Camino 3, Only this time, I know what I'm doing. This is gonna be an easy Camino. Walk slow, drink plenty of water, take a lot of breaks, just have fun. You're not gonna get any blisters. I know what to do now. Little did I know that St. James had something else in mind, and the biggest lesson that I've ever received in my life was waiting for me in Santiago. Because on day 3, I got a blister on one of my left foot on one of my toes. And that night I took my shoes off and I looked at that blister, and my first response was, where the hell did you come from? And I thought, well, this blister will toughen up in a day or two, and I'll be just fine. Only for the next 28 days, my left foot had never had fewer than 8 blisters on it. These shoes were broken in. I knew how to take care of my feet. For the next 28 days, every step was excruciating. In fact, I would wake up in the morning and struggle to just get my feet off the cot onto the floor. And I'd put my socks on and I would put my shoes on, and the pain was searing to the point where almost every morning for the next 28 days, I was nearly in tears before I got out the door of the albergue. And it seemed like when 2 or 3 blisters, they were on top of my left foot toes, they were beneath them, they were in between them. I lost 2 toenails. And I just could not believe why this was happening to me at this time. And every day for the next 28 days, for the first hour or so, it was like getting up and over my physical hurdles. And then if you keep walking, pretty soon my left foot would numb up. But then the second hour, it was as if I had to get up and over my mental hurdles. And the third hour, it was almost as if I had to get up and over my emotional hurdles. I remember on about day 27, I was sitting having a bite to eat and a cup of coffee one afternoon, and I heard at a nearby table a few people talking about seeing somebody that was limping along the way. And I remember one person saying, oh, he or she must have just started and they've got some blisters, because nobody who's walked this far since St. John would be having any trouble with blisters at this point. And I got up and I walked over to that table and I said, I'm not sure if you're referring to me or not, but I started in St. John 3 weeks ago and I can barely move. I walked like a snail for 28 days. And I hobbled into Santiago on the evening of day 31. But here's what St. James was waiting for. Incredibly grueling, the most grueling Camino of the 3. But here was the lesson. I had to get up and over those hurdles every day, whether I wanted to or not. It was either get up and over those hurdles or quit. And I wasn't about to do that. And while Camino 1, I guess you could say, was about commitment, Camino 2 was about consistency. Camino 3, and it changed my life, was about resolve. When you begin to think, what is it that you need to do in your life to get to where you want? There are certain things you need to do, whether you feel like it or not. No change, no change. Buen camino, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening. It's been an honor.
Thank you very much, Mark.
You're welcome, Kelly. And it is true, I will stick around and answer any questions until I outnumber you. And so I know that some of you need to leave at the top of the hour, and I will not take that personally, but for any of you who want to hang around with me a bit, I'd be happy to do that.
If you guys have questions and you want to put them in the chat, I'm happy to put them out there. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of thank you marks. I don't know if you're seeing the chat, Mark, but
It's popping up, but I don't have the chat open.
it says, out of curiosity, why did you decide to walk the Camino Francis 3 times and not the other routes?
I get that question a lot. I like to live in a world of 2 or more right answers. It's not my way or the highway, but here's what I've discovered about me personally. I always like to see a good movie a second or third time. I pick things up. I hear things differently. I listen to I notice there's music in a movie. And so when I went back to walk Camino 2, I knew that I had moments and memories from Camino 1 along the way. For many people, they would choose to walk a different route into Santiago. But for me, I wanted the rhythm, the routine of the Camino. And so even Camino 3 was the same route. I now have good memories, some not so good memories, some great memories along the 500-mile most popular route. And I've got favorite albergues to stay in and favorite places to eat along the way. And one tiny little thing is on Camino 2, as I was walking across Spain, I got a book title, but that's all I got. And I came back from Spain after Camino 2 with a book title, and I will tell you the title of my next Camino book is titled The Last Pilgrim. And for the next 3 years, I struggled to understand what the book was or what the story was. On Camino 3, when I went back, it was as if it was divinely downloaded. I got the characters, I got the story, I got the plot, and actually have begun to work with a Hollywood script consultant for a project called The Last Pilgrim.
Wow.
And so we've got it sketched out, we've got it outlined, and I'm not sure if it's going to be a book first or a movie first, but over the next 10 years, that's the charge, is to publish and possibly produce the film version of The Last Pilgrim. I don't think that would have happened had I walked 3 different routes. So for me, the rhythm and routine, the history, the sites has served me very well.
That's amazing. Yeah, crave the familiarity of the Camino Frances, but I also am dying to go do the Portuguese. So a couple more questions. I'll give you two because you might be able to wind them together. One is, when is your next Camino? And the other was, what happened with Camino 4?
Camino 4, I had my ticket booked and I was to leave May 30th and come back on July 7th. My goal was to walk into Santiago on the 4th of July. And of course, COVID-19 sort of delayed that. And I'm not the type to just push it back, you know, not knowing or being in a holding pattern or a wait and see pattern. So I've moved it. It's on my calendar now for 2023 in the hopes that I might be able to move it up as things open up and more people are vaccinated and it becomes safe or safer to go back to Spain and travel and walk the Camino.
Okay. We have another question. Would you recommend any books to read before going?
Oh, of course.
John Riley.
You know, mine.
Yes, of course.
That
That was a softball thrown your way.
Yeah, I guess so. I donated a number of books to Camino for Good, and they're going to raffle or draw for some books. But when I came back from Camino 1, it was never my intention to write a book about the Camino. But when I began to do presentations and seminars around North America, I always found a way to include a signature story from the Camino. And in the Q&A section of a presentation, more people would ask me questions about the Camino. And a friend of mine came over one day and said, you need to write the Camino version of Mark LeBlanc. And I said, really? And he said, yes. And 12 months later, my Camino book titled Never Be the Same was published. And to date, it is my proudest career achievement. It is not on Amazon.com, but somebody posted a used copy on Amazon for $49. You do not need to pay $49 for my book, Never Be the Same. Send me an email, mark@growingyourbusiness.com, and you can order one through me. But I'm sort of honored. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's
That is
a
quite a
talking
compliment,
point that
double plus.
yeah. So that's my favorite book, quite frankly, because I'm my favorite American author. But there are a number of great books, and I think there are some 2,000 short videos on YouTube now about the Camino. A Walk in a Relaxed Way is another popular book on the Camino that I read. I believe the author's name is Joyce Rupp, R-U-P-P. Walk in a Relaxed Way.
Oh, I like that. All right, here's another question. Thank you for sharing your experience with the world. I have walked the Camino and it has changed my life and how I live it. Any advice to give me, a young female, on how to get young people friends to do the Camino?
Never underestimate the power of a story. Never underestimate the power of a song, a sermon, a movie. And there are some great things that you can begin to share besides your story. I often order the DVD The Way and use it as a gift, the movie with Martin Sheen starring in the movie. I think you can pick those up now on Amazon for about $10 a piece. So share books, share the DVD. There are some great little short 4, 5, 6 minute clips on YouTube that you can forward to people. But I think the greatest thing you can share is your story. So even if you don't want to write a book about your experience. If you feel that it's been life-changing, and I believe you with every fiber of my being, work with a writer, work with an editor to find and share your story in 1,000 words or a couple thousand words, and you'll be amazed at how many people will be captivated by your story.
Yeah, I always give permission to tell people to tell me to shut up.
Yeah, the world, I think the world needs to hear your story. I think they need to read your story. And so whatever form or format you can share your story in, I would encourage you to do that.
That's great. So here's a couple more. I don't know if you can tie these two together. One is give us an idea of what it means to have a Camino in our everyday life. And this one, which you could easily tie together, Mark. Mark, when will your wife join you on a Camino?
Well, Sweet Ann came and met me in Spain in 2014 and walked a portion of the Camino the last week. And she got enough of a taste of the Camino that she's looking forward to walking the entire Camino. I'm an entrepreneur. My boss has given me permission to walk the Camino whenever I want. She's in corporate America and doesn't quite have the freedom and flexibility yet that I enjoy in my work. But maybe 2023 will be her year to join me for the Camino. In terms of a Camino at home, obviously what Camino for Good is doing with walking a virtual Camino with the app is a great exercise. But here's a concept that I created under the umbrella of Create Your Own Camino. I was having lunch one day with a friend of mine in Minneapolis, and he was listening to my story, and he said, well, gosh, Mark, I would love to do that, but there's no way that I can do it in the next 6 months. And I said, well, his name is Tom. I said, well, Tom, I said, put it on your calendar a year from now, or put it on a calendar 2 years from now. I said, it'll give you something to look forward to. Now, he never did. But here's what also came out of that conversation, and I was getting a little bit frustrated with him. And I said, Tom, I said, create your own Camino. And he looked at me and he said, what do you mean, create my own Camino? And I said, I don't know what I mean. Do I always have to mean something? I don't know what that means. And so as Susan would know, and David, who's on this call, and my other friend Susan, who have seen me in action, know that I will often just create something out of thin air. And so I said, well, find something you can do for every day for 30 days. It doesn't matter what it is. I said, and I knew that he was Catholic, I said, say the rosary every day for 30 days. He said, I could go to Mass every day for 30 days. I said, that's a Camino. And so we're brainstorming back and forth. It doesn't have to be a walking Camino, just find something. My assistant, Kylie, who's been with me for 14 years, she created a photography Camino. I've had other people create walking Caminos. I have a friend who walked 5 miles a day for 100 days. We call that a grande Camino. She lost over 100 pounds.
Wow.
Ended up falling in love, got married, now has nearly a teenager in her life. She had given up on her dream of ever falling in love or ever having a family. And the concept of creating your own Camino changed her life. You can create an organizing Camino. It could be 15 minutes a day. But just find something that you can commit to and do it every 30 days. And it's your version of a Camino.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mark. I think I'm out of questions, but we do have another special guest here tonight, and I wanted to see if he would like to say hello, because everybody who's here tonight, we have 61 out of the 70 people still here. And I was wondering if Ernesto Diaz, who runs one of the albergues in Spain, Ernesto, would you like to say hello and anything you'd like to add tonight? I don't know how to unmute you. Lindsay, can you do that? I guess I should have asked Lindsay first.
I'm trying to find him. Hang on.
I'll just unmute everybody for a minute.
Unmute everybody. It's going to get a bit noisy.
Hola, hola. You
Oh, there
listen?
you
Yeah.
go.
Oh, there he is. Hi, Ernesto.
Okay.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Okay, sometimes I take out my camera because I'm working in the radio and on the TV, and sometimes it's difficult. It's in the first place, thank you all for your work, for this wonderful initiative, for the real impact you're having from outside of borders here in Spain. It's a real pleasure to be part of this coffee. And I just want to say to everyone that it's not the best time to do the Camino now, but it is the best time to help the people of the Camino, who really give it all the Camino. And they thought when we live hard times is that God will provide. And it is true, but God always thinks that you help him a little to help the others. What the Camino for God is doing, I think it not only helps the hostels, but it changed the lives of hundreds or thousands of pilgrims who will be able to be in those hostels that maybe without your help it will not be possible. We will return to Camino. We will hug ourselves again to feel that so special union with the way of the stars. And call me if we cannot now, God has a greater plan for each one of us. Over again, thank you, and make a request, very important request for all of you. I think if you want, I think it's possible that Camino for God can be her. You can have your own radio program.
That's
And
ambitious.
it's not only your own radio program. If you want, you can have your own radio.
Oh.
If you want, okay? You just tell me. And maybe a
Okay.
little program on the.
You're going to interview us. Okay.
And maybe a little program in the Camino TV. We can do it. I think it's wonderful for everyone. Okay, just a little. I want to just say thank you for all, and I'm stay here for all that you need. Say that now in the Camino we are a few albergues open now. It's really not pilgrims. Maybe one pilgrim for 10 days.
Oh.
And now it's here in Grañón, it's a lot of snow and very cold. And but we stay here for all the pilgrims. I think that this pandemic maybe finish before summer, and we wait the pilgrims again, and we try to survive now. But thank you so much for all that you do in Camino for God. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ernesto. I thank you for what you do for all the pilgrims. All of us pilgrims are so blessed by all of you albergue owners and donativos. Ernesto runs a donativo, which means you can come and stay there for free. You can give what you have. If you have nothing, you can still come and you're fed and you have a warm bed. And it's just amazing. And so a lot of people are saying thank you in the chat. Ernesto, what do you want to tell them the name of your albergue? Someone
Yes, the
asked.
name is, in English, is the House of Smiles, La Casa de las Sonrisas.
Las Sonrisas.
The house.
Go ahead. It is, it's on our website. If you go to the About Us, and there's a drop down, it says, who have we helped? And Ernesto and the other two albergues that we've helped so far are listed there. We have video interviews with them. Oh, thank you, Ernesto. La Casa de las Sonrisas.
The House of Smiles.
The House of the Smile. Oh, it's beautiful. Someone did ask in the chat also, how can we help? A lot of people have donor advised funds. There is a lot of opportunity for charity to charity giving. I know that on there's a forum, Camino de Santiago.me, I think, and they have a list of donativos there as well. The GoFundMe has a lot of opportunities. We hope to have a list up of all of our albergue owners who've applied for funds up soon, so you can directly help them. We have had 23 applications so far of people who have asked for relief funds, and we've helped 3. Trying to watch here. Blessing, that's in Gragnon, yes. Anyway, I wanted to check while I was still on. We have 591 people signed up for our Walk for Good, which has started on part of the world and starts in America tomorrow morning. And so thank you to all of you. I mean, 600 is double what our goal was, and I know we'll be there before I go to bed tonight. So if you have any questions, just go to caminoforgood.com, and there is a lot of information there. There's a Walk for Good challenge button on the navigation bar. If you haven't signed up, we hope you will. And just want to say thank you. Oh, I do have one more question. Let's see. Is there a way to have a mini Camino in the USA where people can walk together in the socially distanced way and share stories of their experiences on the actual Camino? Oh, wow. You know, we have monthly cafes with all the people who are walking on the Camino for Good and people who are thinking about it. So please watch for that. That's an opportunity for us to come together and tell stories and provide encouragement for each other. I think when I met Susan Depew, she became my Camino buddy, you know, and she had a plan and I just followed her plan. And if you put the goal down, like Mark said, and you decide to go on a Camino, it just starts to happen for you. The Camino provides a way to get there, and it may not be in 2 days or 6 months, it might be 2 years, but you will find a way to get there. But it's kind of that, make the commitment, like Mark said, and decide to go and put it on the calendar and gray out those days. And it's amazing how it does come together. But start walking and get ready, because it does take some training. Thank you, everybody. I think we're gonna wrap it up. It's been a great night. Thank you, Mark, especially. Thank you, Ernesto, for staying up to all hours of the morning to be here. You're a blessing. We appreciate you. And so buen camino and Ultrea.
Ah, buen camino.
Buen camino.
Buen
Thank you,
camino.
Mark.
Thank you,
Thank
Mark.
you.
So much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lindsay, can you hear me?
Yep,
Yes,
just-
we can.
yeah.
Could you make a note to see if you could print the chat
Yeah.
comments and send them to me?
Yes, I think I'm actually recording the chats as well.
Okay.
So yes.
I think I am too.
Yeah. So we should have a recording of everything, and it creates a transcript, but that takes a number of hours for it to go through and do that. So when they're
Sure.
all ready, I'll send you links to so you can use it.
Okay.
That's fantastic. What a great
Great night. Thank you so much, Mark.
You're welcome, Kelly. Nice to meet you, and nice to meet you, Lindsay, and Ernesto. Thank you, and everyone else. Have a great rest of your evening and a great Camino for those of you that are getting the app and starting a virtual Camino with everyone. That's an amazing idea.
Aw, thank you. I
Thanks,
feel like it
man.
was divinely inspired.
Yeah.
I guess I should have put it. I got just now seeing a bunch of people were asking, how do we sign up? That would have been good to put in the chat.
So just to let you know, I've just invited everyone to unmute. So
Okay.
those people that still want to hang around for a little while,
Yeah, I'm going to
they're
put
able
that
to
in
talk.
the chat. I think I did it right, but I'm going to make sure I'm going to copy and paste.
Are we
Well, I
able
think
to? Sorry.
You can go to Camino for Good, right?
Right.
To get the information on the app, and yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, Mark, that was really wonderful. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed that.
Thank you, Bill.
Really good.
You had me
really good.
wondering if you even made it to Orison there for a minute.
Well, obviously in a presentation like this, you don't get every detail of the story in, but that first day, I did not make it. I actually stayed in Hanto.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
And then the
awesome,
next-
yeah.
that's right before.
then
It's one of the stops on the app. Yeah.
right before, and then went up and over Mount Lapeter the next day.
Very cool.
Wow.
I didn't even know the name of the mountain was Mount Lapeter.
Uh,
I just walked it.
Camino 2 and Camino 3, if you recall, you have a choice to walk up and over Mount Lapeter or to walk around on the valley side. And on Camino 2, I thought, hell, I'm not going up and over that damn mountain again. and I took the roundabout way, which is not necessarily a lot easier. It's a different route to Roncesvalles, but even on Camino 3, I thought, I'm going around the mountain instead of up and over it.
Amazing. That's funny. Yeah. I planned on staying in Orison and I got to Orison and I'm like, it's like 10:30. I
Right.
gotta keep going. So I found some people to
I-
talk with and I crossed my fingers that there would be a bed. And I got one of the
I
last.
was definitely going to stay in Orison and didn't realize I couldn't after 3 big beers and they were full.
Yeah.
So I kept going.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Bill and I were texting while you were telling the first part of the story. And it was just like, we're just rolling, laughing, tears coming down. And then you bought another backpack and then you filled the backpack. It was like,
Oh.
I was really lucky that Bill had been on one and he gave me his packing list and he was like,
Okay.
19 pounds. And so I was fairly religious about it.
Well, I had the packing list, but that morning it was like my brain went out my ear. It's like I just started grabbing things. I mean, I had rolls of toilet paper. I had paper towels. It was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So does anyone want to, there's a few people that have unmuted. Does anyone want to or actually say something verbally instead of through the chat?
Ernesto, what time is it over there? How are you doing?
Now I'm staying the radio. And
Working on the radio.
we start the 1st of January, the new TV channel. I put there the YouTube direct address, okay, in the chat. and we make now TV 24 hours about the Camino. We have now the radio 24 hours and now the TV 24 hours. And it's really marvelous, but it's crazy. I think in the last 15 days, I sleep 3 hours per day, more or less, because we do with just with the things that we have, it's not too much. And we only work, my wife and me, you know. When I'm stay here, my wife sleep a little bit after, you know, because we don't have money to put the TV automatically, you know, and we must put just some part of 4 hours. We must get up to change and put the letters and the titles, and but it's good. It's great that it's great now that we have a pandemic, because if we have now the refuge, it's impossible, you know.
Yeah.
But it's the just the little good things of you must stay at home, no? But,
Oh, good. Your spirits look good.
Yes, it's. I think that you must see the life that when the life comes bad, you must smile. If not, it's not life. It's crazy. It's good.
Yeah.
It's, we live in Grañón is a very little village. Now it's incredible, beautiful with the snow. I love the snow.
Yeah,
And
me too.
you know, yeah, we work radio, the TV. We work with our dogs in the mountains. It's different.
So it's so interesting you mentioned the snow, because one of my thoughts of a next Camino would be a winter one, and travel the Camino in the winter with the snow and the cold. And for some reason, I don't know why it appeals to me.
I think
Because you're
I
crazy.
think that is the best Camino is in winter.
Really?
Oh, really? I
Yes.
actually love snow. I could do it.
I make him 14 times the Camino. Okay. And all the Caminos between November and March. All.
Wow.
Why? Because I'm before I'm working I'm a metro of a restaurant, and I work all the year, and I just have holidays on winter. I just only have time for work on winter, you know. But if you want to stay with you, it's the best is in winter. The problem is we want to stay along with us, you know.
No, what?
Because
What?
where you want to stay alone with you, 30 days is really hard, but it's great. And sometimes the problems that you have during 2 years, you make you find the solution in 1 month. They stay along with you in the Camino, you know. It's very beautiful that when you arrive to the albergue and you have 20, 50 people and you go for a beer with all the pilgrims, it's okay. But for me, it's a different Camino.
Yeah, yeah.
For me, I say ever that the real pilgrim is the winter pilgrim. You know, sometimes that the last summer we have 90% more of pilgrims that in the last 10 years. And the people say that is not possible. Yes, it's possible. Why? Because the other years, the 80% or 70% are tourists, and only the 30% are pilgrims. And now, this year with the pandemic, the 70% are pilgrims, and only 30% are tourists.
You know, Ernesto.
For the Camino is the best that the pandemic, you know, because the pandemic, the Camino goes up, and if it's not the pandemic and go up and start the whole year, the Camino is finished totally. You know.
I
And
remember.
now the Camino go down about the tourists, go down about the cheap holidays. You know, now it's again we come back to 10 years ago when we have a lot of pilgrims and people who goes really to find something to not only for a beer or make friends or see beautiful girls or no. Now our
You know, it's interesting, Ernesto, because I remember the first time we spoke, you said the same words, and you said, although this year, as an owner, it's been very, very difficult, but as a pilgrim and an albergue owner, it's been one of the most rewarding because of that exact experience. That the people walking the Camino this year are I don't want to say true programs because everyone does it their own way, but it just gave you a different reconnection to the spirit.
Yeah.
And you thought it was one of your best years. I love that. I thought that was such a wonderful way to explain it.
You know, we don't have many people, naturally the 70% less, no? But we have incredible pilgrims. No, we don't have many donations, but we have incredible pilgrims.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
and when your life is all for the Camino, that you want. You know, I prefer less pilgrims, but pilgrims that